Now, Mr. President, I would like to turn to another matter as President Pro Tempore of the United States Senate and as the longest-serving Republican on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. I asked my colleagues to come together in voting to support Gina Haspel's nomination to serve as the next director of the Central Intelligence Agency. I took to the floor just 2 weeks ago to speak on behalf of Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. And while I am delighted that we were able to get behind his nomination, I am shocked and embarrassed by the scale of partisanship and enmity which marked his confirmation process. On the day of Ms. Haspel's hearing, I am once again disappointed at how poorly a dedicated public servant has been treated by the press and by some in this chamber. This is someone who has served her organization faithfully for over 3 decades. She is one among a very small group who rose up through the ranks within the Directorate of Operations during the agency's transition from the Cold War to the War on Terror. The job of a CIA operative, our nation's first line of defense, is a thankless one. The American people for generations will never know the lengths that these men and women and the sacrifices they made to keep us all safe. For these men and women, public service is not only a profession, but a lifestyle, a commitment that often requires the sacrifice of family and loved ones as well. It is a life of constantly being on the front lines, being in the arena in every sense of the expression. Ms. Haspel embodies all these qualities and has given of herself in ways we can never imagine or begin to do ourselves. In turn, she has not only acquired the needed experience and expertise for this job, but has also gained the respect of the men and women of the organization that she's to head. She has also worked closely with Secretary Pompeo as his deputy for the year during which he was director, a level of trust that will be critical in her new role as director working with the Secretary of State. It is worth pointing out to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle the words of praise offered for Ms. Haspel's nomination by distinguished national security officials who served under President Obama. James Clapper, the former director of national intelligence, said, quote, "I think the world of Gina. She is capable, smart, very experienced, well respected by the agency, rank and file, and a great person," unquote. Leon Panetta, who served as both CIA director and Secretary of Defense, said, quote, "I am glad that they have a first woman as head of CIA. And I'm glad that it's Gina because, frankly, she is someone who really knows the CIA inside and out," unquote. John Brennan, who also served as President Obama's CIA director, said, quote, she will be able to provide that unvarnished, apolitical, objective intelligence input to Donald Trump and to others," unquote. If these words do not represent a seal of approval, then I don't know what does. Never have I seen someone receive such widespread praise from such a distinguished and bipartisan group of seasoned authorities. And never did I think I would live to see the day that the CIA would receive its first female director. Mr. President, I know we will all come together ultimately to vote to confirm Ms. Gina Haspel as director of the CIA. But I would like to take this opportunity to again remind my colleagues in the Senate of the destructive nature of this partisanship. 2 weeks ago, we were on the cusp of not having a Secretary of State, all because we were more concerned with political loyalties. Today, we see the same dynamic at play. We are again divided along party lines and once again on a candidate who is supremely qualified to lead the organization for which she was nominated. This type of partisanship is unprecedented in our history and is destructive to our future, for our future. It represents a true national security threat of the highest order. We can disagree about specific policies. We can have our political stakes, but let's keep those out of our first responsibility of serving the American people, whose physical well-being and safety should be our first priority. Who better understands this than Gina Haspel, a distinguished public servant who has kept our country safe during the most dangerous times in recent memory? I ask my colleagues to stop with this dangerous behavior. Enough of the partisan games. We will be able to hold Ms. Haspel as other cabinet members accountable for specific policies, as is their job. But let's get them into their jobs first. Our nation needs them, and our nation needs us to behave as representatives and stewards of our democracy that we ought to be. I urge all of my colleagues to vote in favor of Ms. Haspel's nomination.